Okay, very good day to you. Moving on to the next topic on MPU 2043U2, Leadership and Human Relations Skills. So today we are going to discuss on topic 5, which is talking about the leader and influences. Okay, so these are the learning outcomes, identify transformational and transactional leadership. And the second one is on the practice aspects of charismatic leadership by pursuing a vision or idea that you care deeply about and want to share with. And the third one will be on the use coalitional leadership to build alliances that can help you achieve important goals for the organization. Right? So these are the learning outcomes. So we are going to talk about three types of leadership: transformational, charismatic, and coalitional leadership. So let's move on to the first one. Okay, transformational leadership is characterized by the ability to bring about significant change in followers and organization. So in simple words, I can say that transformational leaders creates positive change. Okay, they inspire followers to do better. They motivate people to go beyond expectations. They help followers grow personally and professionally, and they improve how an organization functions. So, transformational leaders do not only give instructions, they change how people think, feel, and act because they focus on vision, motivation, inspiration, and long term improvement. Okay, so transformational leadership means they're inspiring people, creating positive change, helping the followers to grow and improve the organization. Okay, so let's take an example. Imagine a lecturer notices that students are passive and unmotivated. So if the lecturer is a transformational leader, so he will encourage the students to believe in themselves and explain why learning is important for their future and creates a positive and supportive learning environment. So over time, the students will become more confident, more engaged, and more committed to learning. So this is transformational leadership, changing people and result. Okay, so remember, transformational leaders inspire change. They focus on people, not just the task. Their impact is long-term and meaningful. So this is the essence of transformational leadership. Let's move on to the next one, which is the transactional leadership. So here in the slides, transactional leadership is a transaction or exchange process between leaders and followers. So in simple words, this means that the leader and followers make a deal or exchange. The followers will do the work and the leaders will give reward or punishments based on their performance. Okay, so transactional leadership focuses on clear rules and expectations, task completion, rewards for good performance, and penalties for poor performance. So this type of leadership is result-oriented and works well when tasks are clear and structured. So transactional leadership means that you do this and you get that. Motivation comes from reward or punishment. So transactional leadership focuses on performance and results. Okay, so let's take an example. Imagine a lecturer tells the students, if you submit your assignment on time, you will receive full marks. However, if you submit late, marks will be deducted. Students are motivated to complete the task because of the reward or penalty. So this is transactional leadership. So remember, transactional leadership is based on exchange. It focuses on tasks, rules, and performance, and it is effective for routine and short-term goals. So this style is commonly used in organizations, schools, and workplaces. So let's continue. The key characteristics of transformational leadership. Okay, so these slides will explain the key characteristics. So the first one, transformational leaders develop followers into leaders. Okay, so they do not keep power to themselves. Instead, they help others to grow, learn, and take responsibility. Second, transformational leaders raise the followers' needs. It means that they help the followers move from basic needs such as safety and security to a higher needs such as self-esteem and self-actualizations. This means followers start believing in themselves and their potential. Third, transformational leaders inspire followers to go beyond their self-interest. Followers do not just think about themselves, but about what is best for the team or the organizations. Finally, transformational leaders create and communicate a clear vision. They explain the future clearly and positively, so the followers feel that the effort and change are worth it. So, transformational leaders build future leaders, inspire confidence and growth, encourage teamwork over self-interest, and motivate people with a clear vision. In conclusion, for this particular slide, transformational leadership focuses on people and growth. It creates a long-term positive change, and it turns the followers into future leaders. This is why transformational leadership is very powerful and effective. Next, looking at the charismatic leadership. Okay, so charismatic leaders charismatic leaders have the ability to inspire and motivate people to do more than they would normally do, even when there are obstacles and personal sacrifices. So in simple words, charismatic leaders influence people through strong personal appeal. So they inspire people with passion and energy. They motivate the followers during difficult situations, and they encourage people to work harder even when it is challenging. People follow charismatic leaders not because they are forced to, but because they believe in the leader and the message. So a charismatic leadership is especially important during crisis, change, and challenging situation. So for simple summary, in this particular slide, a charismatic leader inspire and motivate others. They encourage extra effort. They help people overcome the obstacles, and they lead through personal influences. Let me give you an example. Imagine a student leader organizing a charity event. So even when the workload is heavy and the team feels tired, the leader, however, still stays positive, speaks confidently, and encourages everyone that their effort matters. Now, because of this motivation, the team works harder and completes the event successfully. This is charismatic leadership. So remember, charismatic leadership is based on inspiration. Followers are motivated emotionally, and leaders help people perform beyond normal limits. That is the essence of charismatic leadership. So let's look at the differences between a non-charismatic and a charismatic leaders. Okay, so the first one is likableness. A non-charismatic leaders are likable mainly because they share the same perspective as their followers. They're seen as friendly and relatable. However, a charismatic leaders will go further than that. They are seen as ideal role models, leaders that followers admire, respect, and want to imitate. They are often viewed as inspirational or heroic. The second one is the relations to status quo. So a non-charismatic leaders usually try to maintain the status quo. They prefer things to stay stable and familiar. However, a charismatic leaders creates an atmosphere of change. They challenge existing ways and push people to think differently. Number 3 is on the future goal. A non-charismatic leaders have limited goals that are not very different from the current situation. However, a charismatic leaders present an idealized vision of the future. This vision is often very different from the current situation, and it excites the followers. Let's continue. The next one is on the articulation. A non-charismatic leaders show weak articulation. This means they are not very strong in explaining goals or motivating people clearly. However, a charismatic leaders have strong and inspirational articulation. They clearly explain their vision and strongly motivate others to follow them. Next is on the behavior. A non-charismatic leaders use existing rules and systems to achieve goals. They work within the current structure and do not challenge it much. However, a charismatic leaders use unconventional or new approaches. They are willing to break from the existing order to create change. The last one is on the influence. A non-charismatic leaders influence others mainly through position, authority, and rewards. However, a charismatic leaders influence others through personal power, expertise, respect, and admiration. So people follow charismatic leaders because they want to, not because they have to. So remember, a non-charismatic leaders manage within existing systems, whereas a charismatic leaders inspire change and commitment. This is the key difference between the non-charismatic and a charismatic leaders. Move on to a coalitional leadership. So here, the slides explains that coalitional leadership involves developing allies and building a coalition of people who support the leader's goals. In simple words, coalitional leadership means working with others who share the same goal so that the leader does not act alone. A coalitional leader builds alliances with key people, gains support before making major decisions, uses supporters to help influence others, and work together to implement decisions and achieve goals. This type of leadership is important when the tasks are complex, decisions involve many people, and the cooperation is needed for success. Leadership here is not about authority, but about relationship and influence. So, a coalitional leadership means building support, working with allies, influencing others through teamwork, and achieving goals together. So I give you a simple example. Imagine a lecturer wants to introduce a new students program. So instead of doing it alone, the lecturer will discuss the idea with other lecturers and get supports from students' leaders and gain agreement from the management. Together, they influence students and staff to support the program. That teamwork and alliance building show coalitional leadership. So in conclusion for this particular slide is that a coalitional leadership focuses on alliances and cooperation. Leaders achieve more by working with supporters, and influence grows when people work together. That is the key of coalitional leadership. So next is on the 4 steps for effective coalitional leadership. The first one is that they do lots of interview. Leaders talk to different people to understand their views, concerns, and expectations. Second, visit customers and other stakeholders. This helps leaders understand the real needs, not the assumptions. Stakeholders can be staff, students, management, or partners. Third, develop a map of stakeholders buy-in. This means identifying who supports the idea, who is unsure, and who may resist. This helps leaders plan how to gain broader support. And finally, break down barriers and promote cross-silo cooperation. This means encouraging different departments or groups to work together instead of operating separately. So, a coalitional leader listens to different people. He builds relationships with stakeholders, identifies supporters and resistors, and encourages teamwork across groups. Next, this slide shows how stakeholders usually respond to change. Okay? It helps managers or leaders to understand who supports the change, who resists it, and who is watching. This is called stakeholder buy-in mapping. So let's go through the 4 groups shown in the diagram. The first one is the advocates, stands 10%. So advocates are stakeholders who strongly support the change, champion and lead the change, and actively encourage others. So these people are your strongest allies. The next one is partners, which stands 10%. So who are your partners? Partners are those who support the change. They work together with the leader, then they help implement the decisions. They may not lead the change, but they actively participate. So those are partners. The third one are the observers, which stands 60%. Observers are those who watch change from sidelines. They have a neutral attitude. They have this attitude, wait and see the outcome before deciding. So observers usually are the largest group. The last one are the resistors, the 20%. So resistors are those who defend the status quo. They oppose the change and they feel uncomfortable or threatened. So leaders must manage, not ignore this group. So a simple summary for you for this particular slide is that small groups support change strongly. Majority are neutral and observing. Some resist to change. And leaders must focus on influencing observers, not fighting everyone. So in conclusion for this particular slide, not everyone reacts to change the same way. Leaders must understand stakeholder positions, and successful change depends on building support and reducing resistance. So this is the main idea of mapping stakeholders buy-in. Right? So that is the end of topic 5. And I'm going to continue with the next topic, which is very short topic, and that is the interpersonal skills in leadership. Okay, so these are the learning outcomes. You may pause the video and read it by yourself. So I will go straight into the personality and leadership. Okay, so the slide defines personality as the set of unseen characteristics and processes that create a relatively stable pattern of behavior in how a person responds to ideas, objects, or people in the environment. So in simple words, personality is who you are on the inside. It affects how you think, how you feel, and how you behave towards others. Personality is called unseen because we cannot touch or see it, but we can observe it through behavior. Personality is also relatively stable, meaning it does not change easily. It influences behavior over a long period of time. In leadership, personality matters because it affects how leaders communicate, it affects how leaders make decisions, and it affects how leaders interact with followers. So, in simple words, we can say that personality is internal and unseen. It shapes the behavior and it influences leadership style, and it affects how leaders respond to people and situation. So I give you an example. Imagine there are 2 students leader in this class. So one leader stays calm, listen, and thinks before responding. Another leader reacts quickly and speaks directly without hesitation. Both leaders face the same situation, but their personality causes them to respond differently. So this is how personality influences leadership behavior. So in conclusion for this particular slide, it's that personality shapes how leaders behave. Leadership is influenced by internal characteristics, and understanding personality helps us understand leadership styles. Leadership starts from within. Next, let's look at a model of personality, the Big Five personality dimension. Okay, so this model explains personality using the 5 main traits. So these traits will help us to understand how people behave, especially in leadership. The first one is extraversion. So extraversion refers to how outgoing a person is. A person with high extraversion means he is sociable, talkative, and confident. Whereas person with low extraversions are quiet, reserved, and prefers working alone. The second one is on the agreeableness. Agreeableness refers to how well a person gets along with others. A person with high agreeableness are cooperative, kind, understanding, and trusting. A person with low agreeableness are competitive and less cooperative. The next one is conscientiousness. Conscientiousness. Very hard to say. Conscientiousness refers to how responsible and goal-oriented a person is. A person with high conscientiousness means they are hardworking, dependable, and organized. However, a person with low conscientiousness are careless and less disciplined. This trait is very important for leadership success. The next one is on the emotional stability. Emotional stability refers to how well a person handles stress and emotions. Someone with high emotional stabilities are calm, confident, and can handle criticisms well. However, those with low emotional stability are easily stressed and take failure personally. The last one is on the openness to experience. Openness refers to how open a person is to a new idea and experience. A person with high openness means they are creative, imaginative, and curious. However, those with low openness prefers routine and dislike changes. So a simple summary, the Big Five personality traits are extraversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, emotional stability, and openness to experience. Together, they help explain how leaders think, feel, and behave. Okay, so let's take a simple example. Imagine there are 2 students leaders are handling a group project. A leader with high extraversions will speak confidently. A leader with high agreeableness keeps the team peaceful. A leader with high conscientiousness ensures deadlines are met. A leader with high emotional stability stays calm under pressure. A leader with high openness will suggest new idea. So different personality lead in different ways, but all can be effective. So in conclusion, for these particular slides, that personality affects leadership behavior. The Big Five model helps us understand leadership styles, and there is no perfect personality. Strength depends on situation. So understanding personality helps us to become a better leader. Next, looking at the cognitive differences. So the slide explains that cognitive style refers to how a person perceives, processes, interprets, and uses in the information. In simple words, cognitive style is how people think. Even when people receive the same information, they may understand it differently, think about it differently, and use it differently. So this explains why people can have different thoughts, ideas, and solutions for the same problem. The slide also mentioned patterns of thinking and brand dominance, known as the whole brand concept. This means some people prefer logical thinking, some prefer creative thinking, some focus on facts and details, others focus on big ideas. All thinking styles are important, especially in leadership. So cognitive differences means people think differently. People process information in different ways. Thinking style affect leadership and decision making. Good leaders understand and respect these differences. So let's take an example. Imagine in a group discussion, one student focuses on facts and numbers. Another student suggests creative ideas. A third student focuses on practical steps. They all hear the same task, but think differently. A good leader values all these thinking styles to make better decisions. So in conclusion, for this particular slide, cognitive differences are natural. Different thinking styles strengthen a team, and effective leaders understand how people think. So leadership is not about thinking the same. It is about thinking together effectively. So next is on the problem sensing style. We are going to look at the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI. Okay, so MBTI explains that people sense problem and make decisions differently. It is based on 4 pairs of preferences. Okay, so let's go through them one by one. The first one is introversion versus extraversion. So this dimension explains where people get their energy. Introversion prefers thinking quietly, reflecting, and working alone. However, people with extraversion prefers discussion, interaction, and thinking out loud. The next one is sensing versus intuition. So this dimension explains how people gather information. For people with sensing, they will focus on facts, details, and what is real. However, those with intuition will focus on ideas, pattern, and future possibilities. The third one is thinking versus feeling. This dimension explains how people make decisions. Those with thinking will use logic, reasoning, and objective analysis. Those with using feeling will consider people's emotions, values, and impact on others. The last one will be on the judging and perceiving. So this dimension explains how people organize their lives. For judging, they prefer planning, structure, and deadlines. And with those who are perceiving, they prefer flexibility, openness, and adapting to changes. So a simple summary for you in this Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI, it shows that people differ in energy source, information processing, decision-making, and lifestyle and organization. So there is no right or wrong type, just different ways of thinking. Okay, so imagine in a group project, there's one student who prefers quiet thinking. So we say he is introversion. There's one student who focuses on facts. So we say he is under sensing. There's one student who decides based on logic. So he is under thinking. The last one, he likes flexible deadlines. So he is perceiving. All students see the same problem, but their problem sensing styles are different. So a good leader respects and uses these differences. So in conclusion, for this particular slide, people sense problems differently. MBTI helps us understand thinking styles. Leadership improves when differences are understood and respected. So understanding yourself helps you to lead others better. So this is the personality types key, which uses the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI. Okay, so again, MBTI helps us to understand how people think, decide, and behave, especially when solving problems. Okay, so here, as you can see, they are extroverts, introverts, sensing, intuitive, thinkers, feelers, judges, and perceivers. Okay, so we have already go through this style on the previous slides just now. Okay, so I could only give you a very short conclusion that people think and work differently. MBTI helps us to understand these differences, and a good leaders respect and use different personality types. So by understanding personality, it helps us to lead and collaborate more effectively. Okay, so thank you very much. That's the end of our topic 5 and topic 6. I'll see you on our next topic.